again and share my screen again. Okay. Okay, so I'm recording and I'm hoping you can see see my slides. Just wanting to confirm that if you can see my slides, just type a yes or a thank you, Shanice. Okay, let's whiz through things now that we're going. I'm very sorry about this. I've actually dialed in now on my cell phone data, so let's hope that lasts. Okay, so we're looking at tonight. I just want to move on to the second section. We're talking about the dates, what's due. So you submitted last week, the 12th of April for assignment part 1, end of May is for part 2, and 15th of June is part 3, and we'll chat through these. And we're familiar with the 3 projects that you have to choose from, and you've got to work with one project and see it all the way through. Now, task 2 of the assignment is made up of 4 questions. There's a work breakdown structure to do, a budget to do, a Gantt chart to do, which is the bulk of the marks, and then a network diagram and critical path method, or CPM, critical path analysis to do. If you guys have questions at any point, just shout as we go through. So question 1, and I'm going to chat through the stuff and then also give further detail at a subsequent session in probably 2 to 3 weeks from now, and give further detail there. But for tonight, I just wanted to give a heads up on where we're going with this task, with task 2 of the assignment. So the first question is the work breakdown structure. It says create a work breakdown structure for the chosen project, and the following is the mark breakdown. Showing the levels adequately. Have you broken down the work into levels and sub-levels? And I'm going to show you some examples now of that. That's worth 5 marks. Specific deliverables from the charter are included. So have you identified the key deliverables and broken them down into the key points in that? Work packages and activities are listed for each deliverable. So have you broken down into sub-activities, and those must be shown well, and that's for 6 marks. And then there's kind of 4 spare marks for overall feel and adequacy of the work breakdown structure. The preferred format of a work breakdown structure is that of an organogram, that it looks like an organogram. That's kind of the most intuitive way of putting together a work breakdown structure. But there is further detail around that on pages 87 to 91 of the textbook, and you can also do some basic internet research. So I want to just highlight that the purpose of the work breakdown structure is to understand in detail the work involved in achieving the scope of the project and putting the whole project together. And it's from this detailed breakdown of the work that you can accurately estimate and plan for both the budget and the schedule and other things. So as it says in the textbook, the more detail you have in your work breakdown structure, the more valuable it becomes later for planning and compiling all of the following: the durations of each of the activities that you identified, and therefore the total duration of the project, the resources that you're going to put into those activities in the way of people you need, and possibly materials and equipment. And from that, the durations and the resources, you can also then work out the costs of each little chunk of work that you're going to be doing. And from that, you add all of that up and come up with a total project budget. You can put together the risk analysis. The procurement can be better identified, procurement of materials and resources. And then the Gantt chart can be done more carefully and accurately. And then the critical path analysis can also be done, which are subsequent questions. So what I'm trying to highlight is that the work breakdown structure for me is actually the foundation of a good project plan. You can't plan a project carefully and well until you've broken everything down into your key chunks of work, actual activities and work that must be done. And I'll bring you back to an example I like to use is I don't know if any of you have been involved with organizing a wedding, either your own wedding or some family member or friend's wedding recently. The effort and thought that you put into planning a wedding, if you haven't outsourced the planning of it to some professional, the effort and thought that goes into planning an event like that is fairly meticulous, because for many couples, particularly the bride, it's an incredibly important day, and you want everything to be right. So you're not going to leave anything to chance. It's that same kind of effort and thought that you would put into planning your project, that you're going to say, I'm going to leave nothing to chance. So therefore, I'm going to think through what's involved for every chunk of work that has to be done in this project. I'm going to think carefully through what are the actions we need to take through each piece of work. How long is it going to take? What resources do we have for that? What surprises might happen? And think through it very carefully, what materials and equipment will be used, and so on. So it really is the foundation of good project planning. If you don't sit down and do your WBS properly, it's going to hijack you later. You're going to come up later when you're running the project and you're not going to have remembered everything. You're going to realize there are things you've left out or forgotten. And you're also going to realize that you've been a little bit too casual on your planning of the project. A decent WBS means you've planned your project well, and you really do need to think through everything carefully. So I've got a couple of examples here. You've got your overall scope statement or scope document. From that, you would have your high level or defined deliverables, 1, 2, and 3, and then, or however many there are, and then under that, you would have specific chunks of work that need to be done under each of those 3. And then under each of those levels, there would be specific measurable activities that have to take place under each of those. So here you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 levels. The top level is your overall scope statement. You break that down really into level 1, because the top scope statement square on this slide is kind of level 0. Then you've got level 1, which is the 3 main blocks. Level 2 is the 9 blocks that fall under those 3. And then under each of those, you've got 3 of those. So you end up with specific measurable activities or actions that need to take place. So that's just a kind of broad representation of how you would do your work breakdown structure. Sorry, it's just jumped around here. Here's another simple example. It's a little bit fuzzy. You've got your project, phase 1, phase 2. Under phase 1, you've got deliverable 1.1 and deliverable 1.2. And under each of those, you've got a work package. So under deliverable 1.1, you've got work package 111 and work package 112. And so it unfolds. Now, it's obviously not as symmetrical as it looks here for your projects, because there might be certain deliverables that have more activities than others. But in essence, that's the kind of layout we're looking to show, the sort of breakdown here. So here is, I'm just going to show you this quick example from, this was actually from a project assignment a couple of years ago. And so you've got your title at the top, or your main kind of project title, different phases at level 2, and under those phases you've got specific sub chunks of work that have to be done, and under each of those there are specific activities that have to be fulfilled. Now you'll see from this that this is quite a lot of detail here, which is good, and from this you can actually start working out how much is my project going to cost, because you can say, for instance, take, and I know this is pretty small, I'm sorry it's so tiny, but I wanted to give you an idea of the kind of level of detail you need to go to. So if you take item 2.1.2, which says discuss client requirements, I'm looking at block 2.1.2, if you can find it, discuss client requirements. You can sit and ponder for a while and think, how long is that going to take me? That might take me half a day or a day, a meeting with a client to chat through those. It might be a 2-day discussion and a workshop to be involved in that, etc., etc. So it allows you, when you see all of the actions you need to undertake in the build-up to fulfilling this whole project, it makes you think through things carefully. And as I said, if you haven't done this properly, you end up with a situation where once the project's up and running, you suddenly realize we didn't think about, we've put no time in the budget for discussion around the client requirements or whatever it might be. So really your WBS is a critical thing. Here's another example from a project a couple of years ago where you've got a networking dinner, you've got the venue to sort, the marketing to sort, the accommodation, flights. So this student, he or she has broken down this event into certain things that have to, certain categories of things that need to happen. And then under each of those, there are actions and activities that need to take place. So what I'm looking for in your work breakdown structure is sufficient thought. You know, have you thought through everything that needs to take place, and can you show that? Now, I just want to highlight just one other thing in relation to this is doing a work breakdown structure is not a difficult thing to do. It's not hard, but it does require some time. And in our world of everything instant, we don't always like to spend time doing things. A good work breakdown structure would be put together by a small group of project manager, and she would perhaps have another 3 or 4 people from the project team, or the project team sits together and thrashes this all out early on in the project, and you sit together and you might spend 4 or 5 hours unpacking your work breakdown structure. You first start, and one of the best ways to do it is just to brainstorm all the things we can think of that we have to do. You don't structure it yet. You just throw down all the things we think we need to include in doing this project. And you might do it, it's slightly more structured than just a wild brainstorm, but you go through chunk by chunk, piece by piece of the project, and then unpack all the things you have to do. And as I said, it's not difficult to do, but it just requires a bit of time. It's a bit like washing up. No one really likes doing the washing up, but it's not difficult to do. You know, doing the washing up is not hard. You know, it's not like calculus or microbiology. It's just do the washing up, but we don't really enjoy doing it. So I consider doing a work breakdown structure. Some people enjoy doing it, but it's a little bit like a chore. But if you don't do it, you're going to end up with a stinking mess. If your project is going to be a mess if you don't do this carefully. So make sure your work breakdown structure is adequately done. Then question 2 is the budget. I'm not going to chat through too much, but using your work breakdown structure, pick one of the work packages or activities. So at sort of level 1 or 2, and by level 1 or 2, I mean sort of going back to this slide where you've got top level is level 0. The second row of headings or boxes is level 1, and then your next row, your third level is level 2, and then your sub boxes or your specific activities is level 3. I would say level 1 or 2, you would take one of those boxes and do the following. 1, determine the budget for this specific activity or sets of activities under that. So break it down. For that activity, what actions do you need to take? And therefore, how much is it going to cost? So for this, for this chunk of work, which is sending out invitations, we need to print the invitations. How much is that going to cost? We need to get some quotes and put that all together. Or it might be a chunk of work might be set up office computers on site, or say, you know, office new computers to be installed on site. And that might involve buying the computers and time spent installing them on site. I'm just picking a random example, not from any of your projects that we're doing in this assignment, but as an activity, installation of new computers would involve buying them and installing them. Now, what's the cost involved in that? Do we have to pay an IT person to come in and do the installation and the networking and set up a Wi-Fi network on site? How much are the computers going to cost? So you would break that down in your budget. And then item 2.2 here is to justify the budget by attaching supporting documents. It can be screenshots, etc., of price lists or quotes. So provide lists from at least 3 different service providers or sellers for any 2 of the resources budgeted for. So you need to take 2 things, so like computers and printers, or it might be invitations. Take 2 specific resources and get some quotes or prices from that. Now, just to confirm, I am not going to phone up the supplier and check whether your price is exactly right or not. I'm not interested in the actual price. It needs to be vaguely realistic. Okay, so you're not charging, if you're looking at, say, flights for your staff from here to Joburg, from say Johannesburg to Durban, and that's one of the activities you're looking at is flights, and you're going to get some prices for flights. If the prices per flight per person from Durban to Joburg is, say, 40,000 Rand, that's not really realistic. But whether it's 3,500 Rand or 2,500 Rand for a flight, or maybe you've got booked ahead and got a special with Kalula and it's 800. Please stay. Sorry, guys, I ducked again. It looks like... Hi, it looked like we got thrown off. Well, I certainly got thrown off the session some way, but I'm back in again. Can you hear me all right now? I know I'm not sharing, but we are still recording. Okay, cool, thanks. And let me share my screen again. Sorry, I don't know why this is very annoying the way things are going at the moment. Let's just do that and share the screen. Okay. Cool, we are back on track. Okay, so the budget, as I said, what you're putting together in the way of your budget is just to show that you've thought through the process of trying to cost things out, identify what something's going to cost in terms of man hours at the charge out rates for those staff, the materials and equipment you might need, and then show for some of that equipment or materials that you need to buy, that you've done a little bit of work of finding real values for those, and just put those together. So you need to provide 3 different service providers, or so they're saying, really what this is saying is you need 3 quotes for at least for any 2 resources. Okay, so that's the budget. Then this is the kind of main question, which is the Gantt chart, and it's using project management software, create a Gantt chart for all of the activities in the work breakdown structure. So going back to, you take this work breakdown structure, for example, one of these that you've put together, and you would then need to translate that into a Gantt chart view. And the marks that have been allocated for this is to set up working and non-working days for 5 marks. You need at least 20 activities listed. So that's for 10 marks. Start and end dates, those must be kind of realistic. That's for 5 marks. You must show dependencies or links between activities, which is for 10 marks. There should be some way of showing that you've got phases of the project, summary, tasks, and deliverables, then resources and milestones. Looks like many people are struggling today. Okay, to connect. So hopefully this is all recording, but we will try this again in a couple of weeks' time. I'll go through this stuff again. Okay, so your typical Gantt chart, this is actually a Gantt chart view from Microsoft Project, or what's called Project Professional by Microsoft, which most of you probably don't have access to, but it's just to show you the typical view where you've got your list of activities down the left-hand side, and across the top you have got the calendar or the dates on which each of these activities is going to take place, and you've got the lines linking them, and then a diamond shape. If you can see, there's a couple of diamonds on the slide. Those represent milestones, and I'll chat about those shortly. So that's just a more close-up view of the same thing. You've got your activities. In fact, this isn't from MS Project, I don't think. I think this is from Team Gantt. This is also made with Team Gantt, with lots of detail showing start and end dates, and piecing all of that together. I'm going to give you a very brief demo of Team Gantt now, assuming that the network allows us to. So that's the kind of view you would be looking at. You can set up different colors and make sure the things are linked accurately. And that's just another more close-up view of the same thing. It's the sort of thing that we're looking for in our in the Gantt chart, what's called the project solution. The Gantt chart is your primary planning tool for your projects. And then, I am going to come back to Team Gantt, but for now, I just wanted to quickly chat through the last question, which is a network diagram and critical path analysis. I'm not going to cover this in detail now. I'm going to show you the process more carefully at our next Collab, which will be until the second week of May. I'll take us through this in more detail, but it asks you to generate a network diagram and identify the critical path, and then provide an understanding of that critical path in relation to your project, and explain it through the Gantt chart how any changes to the critical path would affect the duration of the project. So they're asking you to show that you can understand what's meant by the critical path. And you can include screenshots of different duration values to indicate the changes and effect to the timeline, both negative and positive outcomes. Now, the textbook is pretty clear on putting together your critical path. It's fairly well described in this textbook. I would also recommend, you can probably find any number of YouTube videos on how to do a basic network diagram and critical path analysis. But I will chat through that in more detail when we next meet. What I would rather do is just give you a heads up now on Team Gantt as to wrap up. So, because that's all the slides. I'm not going to go and chat through the kind of plagiarism or referencing again. Just to remind you, referencing is important, and to make sure that we do get that right. Let me just stop sharing that. Hoping you can still hear me all right. And now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to share my whole screen and go to Team Gantt. And so let's just share the whole screen. Sorry, there is a question here. Okay, thanks, Shanice. You're just noting that all is good. So I'm going to, hopefully you can still be seeing what I am showing. You go to teamgantt.com. It comes up with this homepage. If you haven't logged into this already, you will need to just get a free account. They just ask for your details. It's fairly basic. There's no credit card required. I've already signed up, so I'm going to log in. And I have here, I'm just going to delete this project, because the one thing about Team Gantt, the free version that I'm using here now, allows you to do just one project at a time. You can't do multiple projects. So you can only do one project at a time on Team Gantt when the free version. And they also restrict the number of sort of resources you can use. So I'm again just going to give a brief overview to getting the process going on Team Gantt, and then next time we meet, I will give a little bit more detail if we need it. But it's relatively straightforward. So you go to create a new project. I'm going to call this house build example. Okay. Then the start date I'm going to set here is, let's take it through and make it start on Monday, the 9th of May. So I've changed that date here to starting this. And you can set the date, obviously, in relation to your project that you are doing for your assignment. Now, don't worry about templates. You can just use the standard basic view. And we go with Gantt chart view. Then this is the working day in the week, and if you want to, you can adjust this, but it's assuming that because the software tells you how long things are going to take and it adds up everything together, it needs to know, have you got a regular 5 working days in a week, or have you got something different? So let's say you're working on a project where this project's only going to be working Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and the whole project team are going to be working on this project just Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, then you might adjust that. In this case, I'm going to include Saturday. So I'm going to say Monday to Saturday, 6 days a week, this project's being worked on. And what that tells the software is that you can allow people to be working on the Saturday, and you can assume that Saturday will also be a working day when it comes to calculating how long the project is going to take. Then you say create new project at the bottom, and it comes up hopefully with a standard Gantt chart view. Now what's given on the left here is the activities list. It's obviously largely empty because we've still got to fill in our details here. And then across the right hand side is your calendar. With the different months, and it's saying the first task is starting on, as we said, it's saying the 20th of May. I don't know why that is, because we did for the 9th. Okay, so then you set up on the left hand side various groups and subgroups, and this is where you are working off your Gantt chart. Sorry, not your Gantt chart, your work breakdown structure. So taking your work breakdown structure, you would start to unpack that. So let me just give you an example where for house build, I've got our planning phase there. And what is the first task that I'm going to put? And I just click on this box. By the way, Team Gantt operates online, and you don't have to save anything. It gets saved in the cloud as you go along. So it's all being done. So I'm going to talk here. Let me just first meeting with architect. And I hit enter. Then it comes up with a second activity, draft design 1. then I want, it's okay, there it's adding in the next one now. Then we'd have, say, second, meet with architect. Then I want draft design 2. So we're going through a planning cycle of meeting, chatting with the architect a couple of times. And then we get client sign off of the plans. And then we want to council or municipality for approval. And then we need to add in what is called a milestone below that. We're going to add in a milestone, and this milestone is plans signed off and approved. Okay. So that's to mark the end of this planning phase. Once we've done this, now I want to go to a new phase. So this is now the phase would be, let's just call it phase 2, appointment of contractor. Okay. And we would put a new task underneath this. So this is now a subtask, advertise for contractor. I'm just adding a couple in more in here. Receive. I'm nearly finished putting in the activities. So we receive and adjudicate the bids. We want to discuss bids with QS, with a quantity surveyor, and lastly, this would actually be, let's just add in a milestone here, signed contract with contractor. So in other words, we have our contractor appointed now. Okay, and we carry on going, adding phases of work and sub-activities, and you can actually drop down a third level, I think it is, on Team Gantt. Now, with that done, you then go on to the calendar side of the equation, and you start adding activities. Now, all I'm doing, I'm not clicking yet. I'm just moving my mouse around on the line. I hope you can see that. And once I have decided where this is going to happen, so it's going to happen, the draft design is going to happen after the first meeting. And and I've clicked, and now I'm dragging, and it's going to take me, say, those days to do. Let me just put this one out a bit further. No, the first meeting would be short. Okay, it might just be on one day. Okay, the draft design, now to move it, I just click and drag. No, it's not doing it now. Sorry, let's just go there. No, sorry, it's a little bit finicky at times. And I'm just trying to get my mouse in the right place so I can move it. Oh, there we go. And I want to bring it into there. Okay, so it follows after that. Then I'm going to have a second meeting with my architect. So let me just move that out to there. Then a draft design 2. Might take another week to put together. Client sign off would be here. And the discussion with the QS might be there. Now, as I come down, and by the way, I haven't clicked yet, it's now showing this next activity as a diamond because I've set it as a milestone. If you remember when I entered it, I said add milestone, don't add activity. So it now shows it as there, and I'm going to put it in there to add that. Then advertising the contractor, I could maybe do that. I don't have to wait till the final plans are signed off. I can start advertising for that before we finish the previous phase. Receive and adjudicate bids could happen here. Discuss with QS would be there, and then we have a signed thing there. Now, what we have to do then is add the links between the activities, or the dependencies as they're called. And here for this, you just click, and or firstly, I hover my mouse over an activity and it comes up with a dot either side. I click on the right-hand dot and I drag down and to the next activity, and now it creates, I don't know if you can see that faint line, it's created it. Now let me do the next one. I go to this dot here and I drag it down to here and I put it onto that activity. Yeah, it's added it in there now. Let me just see here. This is funny. What's it doing? Okay. Then the next one, I click and drag down. Click and drag down. It's telling me, it's telling the software that you must get these activities to follow one after the other. Okay. Why is it doing this? And then let me just move this next one out. Sure, it's very small, this. Click and drag from dot to dot. And then this one, let me just put that over there and click and drag. So you can set this up, and then let's say the advertising of a contractor, which is in phase 2, is say dependent on the second draft design. I can bring that all the way down to there. So now you can join multiple, or you can link activities. You know, it's not like a one-to-one relationship where each activity must flow just from one. You can have multiple links, and that's what the reality of projects is. Okay, you're always going to have that. So let me just move that out there. Receive bids there. Now that red line is showing you that this activity here, receive and adjudicate bids, is starting before the previous one is finished, even though they're dependent on each other. So I might need to move that out to get that removed. Okay, and then this last milestone would be dropping down there. So you can play with it. It's a little bit clunky compared to the kind of professional software you get like Microsoft Project, but it is perfectly sufficient for assignment purposes, and you can put on all the activities, and then when it comes to printing it, you go to menu and you say here print or export to PDF. Okay, print to PDF, and I say print to PDF, and it comes up with this thing where I can change the settings of the paper size. I'm going to make it A4 landscape. I want to include the hours and percentage complete. I want the date columns in there. I might, and by the way, I haven't yet shown you, I'll do this next time and show you how to add some resources to the thing, and then there's just a couple of other settings you play with. I would recommend you play with things. You know, don't leave it to the last minute, and that shows you the Gantt chart in that view. So it gives you on the left here the activities, their start and end dates, and then on the right hand side the bars showing with the summary bars for each phase, and the title bar at the top, house build example, for that's the project name for this one. And then you can download that or save it as a PDF, and then that becomes part of your submission. You'd upload that as part of your submission for your assignment. Let me just go back here. You can also, if you put your mouse over any activity, you find a little pencil there. Firstly, actually, there's a little color bar which you can change, so you can change different things to different colors. You might want to change this whole thing to a certain color, and the next phase you change all of that to let's make that green. So it changes all the colors in there, and then for specific activities you can click on the little pencil and it opens up this, and you can add in any notes you might want to add, change any colors, look at the dependencies that are showing, but again you must just play around with what's there. Okay, so next time we together I'll also chat about resources and adding resources to the activities, because you need to do that as well for your Gantt chart. But start playing with Team Gantt or whatever other software you might do. But provided what you submit is a decent and detailed enough Gantt chart to show that you've thought through the project adequately. Okay, that kind of covers things for me for this evening. Are there any questions from anyone? Any questions from anyone? Do we submit the Gantt chart by itself? As in separately? Well, it's up to you. You can, if you are able to, you can tie it in with the rest of your assignment submission, so make it a single document. But if that's not going to work, then you do it by itself. So you submit your main assignment submission, answering all of the questions, and then you would say for question 3.1 or whatever the number is, sorry, I'm not sure of the question number, but whatever the question number is, you say in the text, the main text of your assignment, you say, please see a separate file with my Gantt chart in it, and then you would upload that separately. So, and you can upload more than one document for your submissions. Any other questions from anyone? Because if not, I'm done for this evening. Thanks for joining me. I will, as I say, we'll probably have a further Collab session in the second week of May, and pick it up from there. Cool. And okay, so if that's all good from everyone, you're welcome to sign off. Thanks for joining me tonight, and yeah, wish you well. And I'll keep in touch through the announcements. Sorry about the breaks in transmission tonight, but hopefully we'll get that right next time. Okay, thanks guys, go well.